0164.1 regular meetings, B 0164.2 special meetings, C 0165.1 notice of meetings, D 0165.2 change of regular meetings, B 0164.2 special meetings, C 0165.1 notice of meetings.
Should be good now.
And then E 1623 3123 4123 section 504/88 prohibition against disability discrimination. Point F here 3120.07 employment of casual resource personnel. G, which is 4430.05 nursing mothers. H 5250 program and curriculum modification, and I 9210 parent organizations. A motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented is recommended. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jenner-John, seconded by Commissioner Cruz to approve the consent agenda as presented. Further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we are down to the operations agenda, which the first point is to approve a second grade teacher.
Probably no one noticed. We just noticed that we missed it there at point 6 of consent agenda. You touched on it, President Stefani, but where we had board policy. We had first readings because we copied the list from last month. As you know, we went through these. It was first reading last month.
Yes.
Second reading this month, which is why within consent. But I just wanted to say that now since we didn't catch that. So again,
Sure.
no change. Agenda is fine. I just wanted to clarify. It was just a technical thing from first to second reading. So it's that time of year when we have another staff member or two. So again, as we touched on, no consent items needing further attention were needed. So we're on to approve a second grade teacher. So Anna Fisher is a young lady who some of you may know and remember from her days at Sturgeon Bay previously as a student. I'll move on with Principal DeVilliers' recommendation. Principal Katie DeVilliers is pleased to recommend Anna Fisher for a second grade teaching position at Sawyer Elementary School, starting with this next school year, 2024-2025. Anna did her student teaching and worked as a long-term 5th grade substitute teacher down in the Madison Metro School District. She was also a long-term sub in the Beaver Dam Unified School District in 2nd grade. Anna's university supervisor shared she is a collaborative, empathetic teacher who always goes above and beyond for her students. One of the associate principals she worked with also added that she truly understands and can relate to students and is seeking to learn new strategies to improve her practice as a teacher. Anna is a Sturgeon Bay High School graduate and has had a goal of returning to Sawyer to teach and give back to the community that built her own love of learning. The team is very excited for Anna to join our 2nd grade group over there at Sawyer. A motion to approve Anna Fisher as a 2nd grade teacher at Sawyer Elementary School is recommended.
I move to approve Anna Fisher as a 2nd grade teacher at Sawyer School.
Second.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Cruz, seconded by Commissioner Spricka to approve Anna Fisher as a 2nd grade teacher at Sawyer School. Do we have further discussion? I'll just say the only thing it's wonderful to see a grad, right? We have numerous examples of this, but it's wonderful. So it's great. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There we go. Approved. So now we're down to approve the library associate at Sunrise School.
Yes, and you have in front of you that recommendation, right? We had it on the agenda. Didn't have the recommendation as of when the packet was prepared at the beginning of last week, as Principal Katie Smullen and others were working on that. But now we have that for you tonight. Principal Katie Smullen is very pleased to recommend Sam Marlewski for the library teaching associate position there at Sunrise Elementary School. Sam brings with her a wealth of experience working with children and families as a community engagement specialist at the Girl Scouts, in addition to a great deal of tech experience as a data integrity supervisor at Fetch Rewards down in Madison. She really impressed the group with her enthusiasm. Finally, her references spoke very highly of her. One of them sharing with Katie, "I would hire her again in a heartbeat, snatch her up before someone else does," end quote. A motion to approve Sam Marlewski as the library teaching associate at Sunrise Elementary School is recommended.
I'll make a motion to approve Sam Minor with the library teaching instruction. Second.
Right, we have a motion by Commissioner Generjohn, second by Commissioner Chisholm to approve Sam Marlowski as the library teaching associate at Sunrise School. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And now we are down to strategic action plan priorities draft. This is the informational item for 2024-2025.
Yeah, we've got several paragraphs of description the board has seen before. I won't read every word to you, and then I'll jump over to the document, the one-page draft in the packet, right? But I will kind of lay this out for anyone that might be tracking this as something new. So the first paragraph just talks about how going back to our annual board retreat in February of 2017, we adopted an approach, right? We worked with a consultant, Drew Howick from Patina Solutions back then, to help us identify what were initially going to be 4 priority areas. And then a combination of time and how the day worked and us having a desire to kind of boil that down led to those 3 priority areas, right? Where teaching and learning, first and foremost, as it should be for a school district, community engagement was next. And then we took what was initially going to be 2, finance, facilities, and operations, and boiled them together to what? To have 3 kind of pillars, if you will, as we discussed. The second paragraph in the background document just talks about how we really want to have clarity for staff, for parents, for community members. We're tracking this, right? We don't have a 100-page strategic plan that has all sorts of brand new initiatives every year. We want to boil it down to the main things. All right. That third paragraph just talks about, again, bringing that focus. Fourth paragraph, the team and I, again, we talk about these things throughout the year, but we talked about them a little bit more, particularly in our June meeting. And then what we usually do in that next paragraph talks about how we try to get you a workable draft this month, just to kind of know where we're at, with many of the main things being the same, slightly updated wording, and then kind of have the board give it the official, stamp of approval in the August meeting prior to the start of the new school year, the teacher in service and all those types of things, right? Yeah, I think that last paragraph just kind of sums it all up. So back to the attachment, we see in teaching and learning, you see a combination of literacy and math growth. We've talked a ton about literacy the last few years, and of course that work continues, right? Especially at our elementary level, they've done a wonderful job moving that along, although middle and high school have been engaged in that too. So you see literacy and math together as an updated bullet point compared to what you would have seen a year ago. The second one with those do 4 questions, what we call professional learning communities, focused around some key questions, that remains basically the same. Okay, we tweaked that second sub bullet point just a little bit. And again, having quality instructional practices that engage all students and are responsive to the data that we see as far as where our students need assistance. That's right in there. Under community engagement, we've kept that to kind of 1 bullet point, right? And you see the different social media, different communications, and you see including but not limited to school and district newsletters, right? We know we did a reboot on that newsletter, working through the pulse here in the past year. And then the last section, finance, facilities, and operations. This is a part of every meeting, although certainly some meetings are more important yet. The first bullet point talks about both the short and long-term budget planning as we're within that operational referendum cycle. You see the wording, right? And the responsible capital utilization that the community has come to expect. We know there's some people looking for different facility pieces. And I can touch on that a little bit later on. And then the last one, all right, attract and retain quality staff. And we go into some of those key topics the board has been working on with staff the last few years too, because we know in a school district, we're nothing if we don't have quality staff to work with all of our kids and families. So again, what you see is not worlds apart from what we saw a year ago, but there are a few things we tweaked, including that literacy and math piece. I think unless someone has a question, that's all I have for you on that topic right now.
All right, I think we'll go on to the next point then, to approve the annual public notice for academic standards.
Yeah, won't read every word, but I will read a portion of this to you. So first paragraph, the 2015 to 17 state budget, which was known as 2015 Wisconsin Act 55, had added several notice requirements from school districts, right? That happens every now and again. That among those notice that were added, were regarding academic standards, school report cards, different types of things. So as we are reminded by WASB each year, including this quote, I will read this one, school boards are reminded that they must include an item on the agenda of the first school board meeting of the school year, meaning the first school board meeting after July 1, that clearly identifies student academic standards, jumping ahead a little bit, that will be in effect for the school year, jumping ahead a little bit. In addition, school boards are required, continuing, to notify parents, guardians of students. The notice can be provided electronically, including the posting, the notice, or a link to the specific academic standards on the school district's website. As you know, we've expanded the curricular information on the website in recent years. Okay, that next paragraph just talks about sometimes people, and I think we talked about it a month or two ago with some of the science curriculum adoption, right? Like how many years does a curriculum or materials last? And it kind of depends. The point is, on an ongoing basis, we can do that. Once something's approved, it's in effect until we approve an update and make the board and others aware of it. All right, that last paragraph just talks about how really several years ago, this was a little hot, right, around things like Common Core and other things, right, that had some different pieces kind of reading between the lines. So what we call them are Sturgeon-based standards, meaning yes, when the DPI right down in Madison has some different things and we have links to all that information, we still have the ability to tweak those as we see appropriate. While there's nothing that's an especially, hot button topic, right? We have the Human Growth and Development Review, right, just occurred a couple of months ago. We reserve the right, if you will, as a district, and of course, as a board, you've endorsed that in the past, to call them Sturgeon-based standards. So if it ever comes up that there's a problem with maybe some science standards or something, we can tweak those accordingly. All right, so again, we have a couple of links included in the packet, right, for anyone who's interested. Otherwise, our curriculum page on the district website has that. We're just supposed to touch on this annually to ensure that we're keeping on top of this. So I'll jump down to the last sentence then. A motion to give the required annual notice pertaining to academic standards utilized here in the school district of Sturgeon Bay for the 2024-25 school year is recommended.
I'll make a motion to give the required annual notice pertaining to academic standards utilized in the school district of Sturgeon Bay for the 2024-2025.
I'll second it, but I'm gonna, just for discussion anyway.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Jenner-John, second by Commissioner Spritka, to give the required annual notice pertaining to academic standards utilized in the school district of Sturgeon Bay for the 2024-2025 school. Further discussion?
Discussion, question, comment?
So, and maybe you said it,
No worries.
you speak kind of quick for me sometimes. What does that mean? Give the annual notice? Is that just the August 1 notice or the notice online?
Our first meeting after July 1, where we as a board and district are saying, here is where our standards are. Okay, so information, good question, to the website. So we're not updating a complete change in curriculum from a year ago. But we're saying annually through this notice in this particular July meeting that that information is available on our website. Anyone can access that. There's also a link to which parts, right, align with what the DPI in Madison has. And we just want to make sure that in print and like what went to the newspaper and all those types of things show people, like, if they have any questions about this, here's where they can access the information.
And that's what I thought I'd read.
Yeah, no.
You said
Sometimes it's good to clarify.
Is
It's a good question.
this meeting the annual, but it's actually after the next meeting. So
Any further discussion? No, yep. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We are now down to, point 6, which is policy 2264. Better known Title IX, first reading.
Yeah, I'll make one more comment as follow-up to Commissioner Spritka's question, just for everyone. So if they haven't looked at the district's curriculum page, information is available. Like if someone wanted to, I wonder what they're doing in first grade, right? So let's say, or here, let's use second grade as an example, since Gabby was in second grade when we moved to town, right? So what has happened, we didn't have it in place 10 years ago, we have it in place now. A parent can go to second grade and say, here are the key things in second grade, here's the progression to third grade, et cetera. The other way that our teaching and learning folks, now we know Jen Weber oversees that for us, works with the principals and the teachers. The other way they've done that is if someone says, I'm particularly curious about math. Right? What is like the scope and sequence, or sometimes teaching terms we use, like how does math kind of progress from the lower grades all the way up? A person doesn't have to go grade by grade. They can go just to math on the website and say, oh, here's how math starts in the lower grades and progresses its way up. Right? So there's a couple of different ways that's set up depending on how a parent or grandparent or resident might want to look that up. And again, then information to be able to delve a little deeper if they want. So I just thought that I could have commented on that earlier and it occurred to me right after. So that's that. All right. Back as President Stefani said to the next item, Title IX. Again, we're all seeing different things and articles in the news and right, if Mrs. Denise and I had a quarter for every email we got from Neola or someone else about Title IX. Cut our service short a couple of years, I don't know. So what we did, and I'll just kind of walk you through this. I won't read every bit of this, and then we'll kind of look a little bit at the policy too as needed. So in essence, we reached out to legal. So to back up, Neola, of course, is the school board policy company we and many other school districts in Wisconsin contract through, right? So they don't have ultimate say over our policies, we do. But they prepare drafts because literally they do that for a living, and they do that not only in the state of Wisconsin, they do that across several states, especially in the upper Midwest. All right, so everyone knew this whole federal Title IX thing was coming. They've been preparing things, and Neola basically says, hey, here's your sample policy. We recommend that you talk with legal counsel you use, because if you're ever having a situation where there's a problem with the Title IX complaint or investigation or whatnot, you're probably going to be talking to your legal counsel, right? So we worked, as I kind of write in here, with Mary Gerbig, right, an attorney that our district has used. She's kind of a special ed guru of sorts, but she also has been in the field a long, long time, and is someone we utilize with different things. So kind of a combination of going between Mary and her team and our nice Neola rep, Jean. They're kind of helping us walk through. So basically what we did is we took some of this, and before I go back to the language, in essence, Ann Denise and I sat down with the draft, worked through and said, okay, here are the things based on our understanding that seem like a pretty clear answer to the different choices, if you will, in the Neola policy. Here are the areas where we just have maybe a little question. And then basically here are a couple areas where we're really not sure where we're supposed to go with this. We need legal counsel's help. Right, so basically Mary and one of her staff members then worked through that and sent us notes like, okay, yep, you're on the right track. Here's what you got. Here's where you have a choice. Here's where we recommend, yes, you go this way, but not this way. And so because legal counsel is who we use in those situations anyway, they kind of helped and informed us come up with this draft that you actually see in your packet. All right, I'll just touch on a couple of things from the background language before going back to that so I don't forget. So that third paragraph just talks about how once this is approved, just like our handbooks, you can't discriminate against, anyone based on, right, certain wording that lots of organizations have coming out of the Title IX update. There might be some updates to the wording that we might have to make in our handbook. Okay, well, we already approved handbooks in June, as you know, and rather than go through that whole process again, the thinking is once we work through this, in essence, the board is endorsing the language, and we can just make more or less clerical or technical corrections to the handbooks, not to change the true content, but just if there's like a certain notice or something that needs to go on that cover page, that can occur. Okay, so that's basically what that paragraph's talking about. All right, my note 1 deals a little bit further with that. Then note 2, I had a little information last month and then added a little bit more, and I can touch on that briefly in the superintendent report part at the end. I don't need to belabor this any more than necessary, but there are some circuit courts in some states where there are, in essence, some stays, if you will, on the actual, federal requirement on districts to implement everything. All right, so we're in a situation where Wisconsin is not currently a part of that. Okay, so we don't have to worry about an injunction, in essence, is probably the legal term to use. However, there are some other organizations that I'm going to touch on in the report. In fact, we got another Neola email at about 2 o'clock this afternoon saying, hey, proceed on with your boards, adjust your policy as you see fit. Here's the latest and greatest on what that looks like with some of the other subgroups, which again, I'll separate that up later. And then note 3, our Neola rep, and again, Jean is her first name, she's a retired superintendent. She made some documents available to us to share with, again, we're looking at you as the board members, but if someone from the public were interested, since this is a hot topic, especially in some communities, like the actual Title IX final rule. I'll admit, I have not read the 423-page version, but it is available. If we or anyone from the public would be interested, we have been given that to be able to share with people. The final rule fact sheet, which is, again, you would hope a sheet would be 1 or 2 pages, it's fine, but there it is. And the Title IX final rule summary table. So again, a summary table you would hope isn't too long. Well, that's 15 pages, but we do have that available to folks as well. Some of you probably know with Title IX, a lot of this kind of stemmed from situations, especially at post-secondary, kind of college level and university level situations. Not that it can't occur in K-12 institutions, but that's not where a majority of those challenges have been. We've had a Title IX policy for a period of time that allows people, if they have a concern, to make a complaint, and we'll look into it, and if deemed appropriate, have an official investigation. We can get a third party, right? As you saw in that draft, like we can bring in a third party, an attorney, if we think, ooh, this could be a sticky situation. How would we have someone internally deal with that? Right, we have options, just like we have in a couple other policies. So in that regard, it really hasn't changed. It's just what's the appropriate way on a summer night of saying there's just a lot of noise because of the way the federal government has approached this. And there are some, institutions and states that have a little issue with maybe the way they're going about. Okay, as far as, day-to-day change for the students, families, and staff members of Sturgeon Bay, I don't see a huge change. But again, we're making sure that's kind of all those ducks are in a row. One of the biggest things that Ann and I found interesting is that they were really looking, and at the beginning of Neola's big explanation, like to have a male and a female, kind of complaint or compliance officer, right? So no matter what a person's situation, they can reach out one way or the other, right? Which makes a lot of sense. What's fascinating is the pendulum seems to be swinging back already, whereas we've looked at it and talked with our, Mary Gerbich's team. The thinking is, maybe instead of having 2 people, like on paper, Lindsay Ferry, right, is listed as the female, I'm listed as the male. The way they're kind of guiding it now is saying, maybe you just want 1 person, right? Lindsay has already gone through some official Title IX training for us. And then, especially because a lot of districts are only so big, you kind of want to maybe reserve, right, non-legal term, I'll say, the superintendent to assist with basically what they have in there. And again, you see this in the policy a couple of places, in like an informal process to help resolve a complaint, right? Because let's say 2 parties are frustrated with each other, it leads to a Title IX investigation, right? Regardless of what our finding is, that doesn't necessarily always make both parties happy. But by saying, hey, let's keep 1 Title IX person, in this case, we're saying Lindsay, and then have other people who can be appointed to do an investigation, right? Interview some kids, maybe a principal, right? Maybe sit down with the families, someone like me, and kind of navigate that. They're saying that might be wiser. And still, we reserve the right to say, ooh, this is a sticky one. Let's bring in an attorney as a third party to do the investigation for us. Okay, so long story short, those are some of the different key things. It's an astonishing amount of looking through words and messages, but I'm hopeful that it doesn't really throw anyone in, excuse me, our school community off as we get through it. Are there specific things I could, yeah, go ahead, Wayne.
Thank you for the explanation, and that was my
Yeah.
question is why is Lindsay the one who's named in that position? But
Yeah,
obviously it's because of the training and the expertise that she may have that no one else has here yet.
yeah, it's one of those where districts want to have at least 1 person receiving that level of training, and then in essence, all of our staff will receive some level of training, not the 2-day session maybe Lindsay went through. And so maybe this is perfect dovetail into what will happen next month anyway. So all of our staff members, now it varies a little bit if you're a custodian, teacher, or whatever it is, right? Have certain what we call modules through a system we contract with, and Ann kind of works with that company for us, called Safe Schools. Right, so each August, as we're approaching the start of the school year, we don't spend hours and hours in service with people making presentations in the auditorium and listening about, again, things you've probably done at your work, bloodborne pathogen, mandatory reporting, right, all those types of things. Instead, the system we've had in recent years is staff members, again, whether they work in food service or a custodian or a teacher or the superintendent or whoever, right? We have certain modules we should watch because of our duties with the district, right? So what's gonna happen is Title IX will become one of those modules. All right, so we'll probably start with whatever they have available, and our understanding is they'll be updating that type of module to align with the new Title IX regulations. So that way, to your point, Wayne, everyone receives at least some level of training, even though not everyone needs, say, 2 days in the summer to go through that. Does that make sense to people?
Yep.
Anything else that I could, just a high level, or maybe you noticed something on one of the pages and thought, why? In fact, let me give you one example. On the third page of the policy at the bottom, all right, they're saying it's an option. It goes on to all of the fourth page and the top of the fifth page, like, hey, you could have this extra language around students who are pregnant and they still have an access to education, right? And you and I would say, well, of course they do. So in talking with legal, they said, you don't need all those extra sentences, paragraphs, and what amounts to almost a page and a half. You could add it if you want, but you don't need to. So what we did on behalf of the board is we thought of, what's another conversation we had, and again, let's say roughly 2 years ago, where the board really delved into, and I think over about 3 months, we looked at the concept, I'm just gonna call it like, sex ed within health, right? Different from human growth and development review, but like all those types of things. And as the board went back and forth, do we want more wording? Do we want less wording? In the end, what the board decided was, you know what? Let's have a less word. Let's have the parts addressed that we know we need to address. But let's allow, in this case, we know Mr. Herland is our health teacher, right? And we heard from Jen Weber and we heard from Mark Smullen that, hey, we have a handle on this. Mr. Herland is an experienced health teacher. We don't need to prescribe like kind of every sentence of what he needs to do. After the 3-month conversation, we decided less is more. So what Ann and I did is we said, okay, using the same board logic, yes, we could have this wording, but in a couple of these areas, let's just look at it the way the board has looked at it in the recent history, if you will, and said, if that's not there and legal says it's not there, because of course you're going to provide an education to, in this example, a pregnant student, right? Of course we would. Don't have all those paragraphs in. So there's one example of where we looked at it and said, oh, we don't need that all, if that makes sense. I think beyond that, and really the 2 other things that come to mind is the whole appeal piece. And basically what they were saying is, hey, have, an appeal because you have to, as far as if there's going to be some sort of investigation, right? And that whole finding piece. You don't need to have an appeal of whatever the finding is. So legal would say so don't bother with it. All right, so we went, oh, okay, that's logical, right? They know, so we went that route. And then, again, I touched on it earlier. I was trying to find the exact wording, but I don't want to belabor this longer than it already is. The piece about kind of I want to call it the informal resolution process. I might be picking a wrong word, but just how someone like, again, the person in my position in this example, right, can assist with that if we're not overseeing kind of the whole investigation, even though just boiling it down. Can Lindsay, and should she consult with me as she's navigating the situation? Well, of course. Can Lindsay consult with legal counsel at any point, whether she checks with me first or not? Of course. Right. And then if it were a situation where there was concern with someone like, say, who is the district administrator, then there's a mechanism that, again, the person in Lindsay's position, right, lets the board president know, and then they can go right to legal counsel. We don't have to worry about, oh, someone's helping investigate someone who technically on paper is their supervisor, right? There's ways to navigate. So that's a lot of somewhat boring stuff, sorry. Does that make sense?
What's needed.
Yes.
So that's primarily, that is informational because this is the
First read.
first read, so nothing, no
No
action
action.
tonight.
Nope.
So, is everyone good with that? Can we go to the next point? All right, so, next point is the 5-year pupil non-discrimination self-evaluation, public input notice and related updates. Another informational item.
Yep.
Well, close, do the right thing.
Right. I'll kind of summarize the background and then I'll give kind of an official notice here for anyone who might be tracking the meeting, right? So the first two paragraphs just kind of walk you through this process. It's been more than 5 years since the last time we had to do this, not because we've done anything wrong, but because DPI paused some things during COVID. All right, so I have the template we used back in the 16-17 school year, and that's what we're working on in recent days, weeks, and we'll have updated, I believe, and completed in the next month. What I need to do as a part of this meeting, and also I'll just go to paragraph 3 for the board members who are following along here in bold, right? And I want to let the public know, although this was out, and again, although this went through the newspaper and all those types of things, I'm going to say it anyway for anyone who might watch this, right? If any students, teachers, parents, guardians, or residents would like to provide input and or learn more about this 5-year pupil non-discrimination self-evaluation process, I'm giving a public notice, again, through the materials we're already sent and what I'm covering in this meeting, that they can contact me, stop by, they can email me, or they have my direct line right there by noon on Monday, August 12th. And the reason I say noon on August 12th is that's when we're preparing the board packet for the August meeting. We just want someone, hey, if they want to have some input or whatnot, let me know before then so we can incorporate their input into the report that I plan to have for you in the August meeting, just showing that it's done. Right, the board doesn't really need to do anything with it. We need to have the report complete. What I'll do for DPI is I don't even have to send the report in, but I have to fill out a form that aligns, and I basically say, yes, we've done things, we've given the public notice, we've looked through our data, we have a report available in the district if anyone is curious about it. And what I'm saying tonight is that if anyone associated with our district wants to learn more about the process or basically give me some input to include in our report, they can do so. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. And again, there's a period of time I'll be on family vacation. So you see, I added the note that when they contact, if I'm gone or they get my bones back, they can connect with Mrs. DeVries and make sure that that's submitted, even though I'll be back before August 12th. So that's the main thing. And then the notes just kind of finish basically saying that we've had like counselors and Lindsay, I thank them that they already updated information. A couple of especially Katie Smullen, Mark Smullen, and Keith Nerby are getting me a little bit of data on sports and other club data to show that we're looking at that. The high school gives me some information on the scholarships that are awarded to show that we take a look at male, female, et cetera, special ed. That'll put in the report. I think that's all I have to cover, unless someone has a question.
So then we're to the reports, which should Jake go first or you go first? What do you think?
Let's turn over to Jake.
All right.
I sent you an updated report this afternoon. It's in front of you. Pretty straightforward. Most of what's typed up is a repeat from last month. So just some notes that we'll probably talk a little bit more about starting next month. Looking at. So that's about all I have. Auditors, I think I shared this in my original report, are gonna be here the first full week of August. Yeah, just general operating procedure.
Would just give a verbal shout out on the food service piece we discussed, or I can, or whatever.
So, yeah, I don't think that's in Jenny's report. So, in looking at the sustainability of free breakfast for all, at this point, I don't think we can recommend taking on free breakfast for all. We took a bigger dip in fund balance. Than in the past couple of years. This year, it appears surprise, mostly food related, food expenses. So that's the long and the short of it. If there is, we're not closing the door on it. If there's somebody that would be willing to help fund that, certainly open to discussions or some peoples, a couple of groups, certainly open to discussing that. I know Jenny was gonna put together some thoughts on what it could look like. So, yeah.
But there is, I think the key thing here, as I understand it, if someone is on free and reduced lunch and they have a need for breakfast, we're gonna get them breakfast.
They're still, they still
They're still
qualify.
qualified.
The way it worked is that those same kids who qualified for free and reduced meals, we were getting money from the federal government, from USDA, whatever, the various sources for those meals. And then we were covering the meals of those really who didn't qualify. So yes, those kids will continue to get meals. And really Jenny and her team, they're very good about if somebody needs a meal, they're gonna get it. So,
So that I just wanted to, hopefully TV land, anybody that we will, if someone needs food, we're gonna get them food.
What I think,
This is more just the overall program, which during, what kind of came out of COVID, where we really went to just anybody, like everybody can have free breakfast. That's just, some of those I mean, I know we were covering it one way, but like there was the ESSER dollars and all that. I mean, that stuff is just gone.
Yeah.
So we're now down to, well, Dan and I talked about the balance we're at. It just isn't, we don't want to go into negative land by doing this, but we're still gonna provide for those that need it, get it. So that's where
What's the estimated amount
the,
to cover kids that don't, qualify for free and reduced lunch, like how much is that?
what we want, and I'm just going from memory, so correct me if I'm wrong. We once had as much as $200,000 in that account that we were drawing down. And now where are we at 30? Where are we at?
as of today, about 38,000.
Yes.
So we started the year about 200,000. The past couple of years, we had taken dips at 20, 30, 40,000 range. Which obviously at 50 we can handle. And then we just took a bigger dip this year.
But that's the whole food, that's the.
Right, that's the
So
total.
we'd have to get you the real, I think your question is, okay, how much is just breakfast? Like, what would that cost? That's probably a good Jenny question, but it's certainly gonna be
But
it's not 200, it's probably.
my initial guess would be to cover, make sure we don't take a loss, be somewhere in that 75,000. Give or take 25.
sometimes
that's
you're gonna
Above and
appreciate.
beyond,
Yeah,
that's above and beyond those that are already qualified.
there would be no change in that, you are spot on. Right, and some of that depends, right? It's kids, right? Which kids are qualifying, which aren't, and who's taking it, right? So, a few summers ago, some of you might recall, there was a big thing on NPR and us, lunch shaming. Okay, some of that was just kind of as we were going into COVID, where, in some states, we weren't seeing this as a big issue in Wisconsin, right? Kids like, oh, his family hasn't paid his, lunch balance. So he gets, this peanut butter and jelly sandwich out of this brown bag that the whole cafeteria sees him get, right? Yada, 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 right? So it kind of became a whole thing with some, well, probably a year or two later at school board convention, there were some people, and some of this goes back. I remember when John Hauser went to a kind of free breakfast for all presentation when he was on the board, right? Which goes back quite a ways now. And the whole thing, right? Some experts would talk about, well, is there a stigma? Are some kids more or less likely to take the lunch or the breakfast in this example, knowing that, oh, they're gonna know I get free or reduced, as opposed to, oh, it's just available to all. All right, so when Jake talks about like that fund balance, just a quick reminder, right? We know this, but so no one misunderstands. We're talking specifically about that fund 50, right? That food service balance, right? Not the general fund balance, the different things, right? When he gives you updates here. That can only be used on food service, right? We can't transfer money out of food service to help pay for a teacher or whatever it is, right? If food service loses money, we have to cover that as a district, okay? But if food service is especially strong with a large balance, even the DPI will kind of say, oh, I don't know, Sturgeon, you're getting a little too much money in your food service account. Then we have to look at, okay, do we need to replace our freezer or the delivery truck or, those types of things, which we've been doing. And some years it's like, oh boy, we're at a pretty large, fund balance in food service. Jenny doesn't need anything particular toward the kitchen or the delivery truck. So that's where we kind of got on, well, maybe we give, free breakfast a try for a year or two, but going back and kind of wrapping this up, we, between Jenny and Jake and I, also told the board at that time, and now you as the current board, like, we'll examine it annually. And if it means that, yes, like last year we had it, and it was good, great, that didn't mean we're doing it until the end of time. Right now, we looked at the snapshot and fiscally, it's not the end of the world, but it's not such a healthy balance that we, between Jenny, Jake and I, feel like that's appropriate. So we'll see what the coming year brings, and maybe we'll talk about it again next summer. That makes sense?
Yes.
But the key point, those that need it, get it,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
Everybody's got it.
Yeah.
We're not taking food away from people that desperately need it. So.
Good.
Good.
Good for now, Jake.
Good for now.
All right, thanks so much. Yeah. I'll just kind of wrap up with, from my report on page 1, I'll just highlight 2 things. So the July 25th, we're gonna have a simulation. So, Jeff from, the Director of Emergency Management for Door County and I have been in contact. And so they want to have basically a Red Cross simulation to make sure everything can run smoothly. Obviously, our campus is one of the key sites, God forbid there's a tragedy, in the area and people need a place to live because they can't be in their homes. So they're gonna run through and test some things utilizing probably the middle school commons and the high school gym last I heard. So if anyone sees Red Cross vehicles or whatnot going with, again, like, John, our AD, is gonna communicate to coaches and this and this and this, right, that's going on, but I wanted you as the board and anyone else who tracks this, right? Not to worry if they see that type of activity around July 25th, it's a planned exercise, so they can be ready if we ever need that in our community. And then the next item, the first one in finance, facilities and operations, kind of that rec facility meeting, you and I might call it kind of the sports complex. So in essence, Chris Silazewski from Ayers Associates. And again, you as a board actually approved our portion of the feasibility study money a full year ago. Okay, so we were ready to go into it. Some of you know, and I think Tina is our historian who's talked about the track and whatnot, right? Even when we have the money, right? Some of this goes back 30 plus years. Okay, so the fact that there's been a little bit of a delay isn't the end of the world because we're looking to get it right. Okay, so in essence, Chris got together, we had reps from Raybrook in the community, some other kind of key people like a Craig Siegel. Again, we had several people there, Josh from the city, I was representing the district, Mike's involved in that, Pam Seiler couldn't make it that day, but she's engaged, right? So we have a mixture of people who are kind of a steering committee to kind of help move it along, and then eventually they're gonna be getting in groups, like people that are involved in soccer, people that are involved in track, people, all the different people will have a chance to weigh in. And this process, Jake alluded to it in his report too, because I've been sharing materials with him, kind of runs from July through what we think is December. They said that could tweak up or back a month. But kind of this last 6 months of the year, we're gonna have meetings. So it's 2 this month and then kind of 1 a month to kind of map through some information. And we're being told that all of us that put money in for the study, right, we will get something in the end that talks about, okay, what is the feasibility of some sort of, expanded outdoor complex, right? Like the track, the field stuff we've been hearing about before, as well as the possibility of some sort of indoor facility, right? What is that workable in Sturgeon Bay and Door County? And if so, maybe what are some options with where that could be located? How could some of these things be funded? So that's the information that's ongoing. So I know it's been a long process, as Josh Felicia and I have talked multiple times, like people have talked over the years, it hasn't happened. We're gonna work through a process now, and I think the timing is such in Door County and Sturgeon Bay that getting something going, I advocated with the consultant, like, hey, even if it's phased, that's fine. But show the community that there's progress, whether it's, whatever has to happen with the track and then the other stuff around it, right? We are all for that, but it's not as simple as the board has made it clear to me, and I've shared with others, whether popular with them or not. It's not as simple as the school districts is doing a referendum to fund it, right? That's why the city and others are involved. So I have a blurb specifically in the report. I'll keep you posted as we go. Other than that, the only other thing, I gave a little bit of Title IX updates. I don't need to bore you to tears about that policy. We did get an email today, and if anyone's really interested in the topic, I'd be happy to forward it to you. But basically what they did is since that, the federal judge in Kansas with that particular injunction involving those states talked about certain plaintiff organizations getting to the court, even though we're not governed by the court in Kansas, getting to the court, like, what schools are your kids attending, right? So the school, the organizations, you maybe have seen this in the news, maybe not, Young America's Foundation, Female Athletes United, and Moms for Liberty. Probably in Wisconsin, we probably hear more about Moms for Liberty than the other two. That they could submit a list, like, your students are in what schools in Wisconsin? Okay, there's nothing in Door County. There are some as close as Green Bay. I believe it's 26, if I counted right earlier today, schools where, okay, those organizations have one or more children in them. And that doesn't stop the school in a private school case, or the district in our case, from moving forward with the Title IX, getting the policy stuff in order. It just means basically, hey, they might be on the list, and then we'll see where some of these court cases go. So again, I can share more if you're curious, or maybe if you're talking with a resident who is passionate about this topic, I'm happy to share that. But I won't read that whole email to you right now. You will be asleep by the end. So I will stop my report on that. Good. Oh, I had one other thing, I'm sorry. Katie Smolin texted me right before the meeting here as I screamed down from basketball. So some of you maybe saw it on social media. I was watching a little bit on live with Nelson and Spencer back in the tech office. So it was the lemonade stand you've heard about, right? Occurred today and Monday. Keeping my days straight, right, Katie? All right. And Katie reports that today the group raised $2,038.69, which combined with what they raised on Monday. And that's not someone just walking in with $1,000. They raised $3,874 toward the playground effort. And as you've heard, right, so the Sunrise piece is funded and in motion. So that's almost $3,900 toward the Sawyer effort. Anything major with that, Katie, that I should we should add?
Great job, everyone. Mandy Schoeneman is awesome. It was great. A lot of support. So such great community support. It was very cool.
Very good. And I heard the lemonade was very good as well. I didn't get out of the girls' basketball gymnasium quick enough, but I heard good things. I'll stop there.
All right.
We'll finish on that nice note.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
And move to adjourn.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Chisholm, second by Commissioner Jenkins to adjourn. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Adjourn.